Okay, brothers, welcome to another presentation of the North Carolina Masonic Research Society. Tonight we are frankly thrilled to have Brother Chuck Dunning, author of Contemplative Masonry. Many of you know him from his book. Those in North Carolina that have attended Middle Chamber or even the Inner Chamber program are very familiar with him. Chuck is a fantastic speaker. I could listen to him read the phone book, quite frankly. And I know for you young guys, the phone book is about that thick. It had a listing of a lot of stuff in there. But we're honored to have Chuck. He's one of the greatest Masonic minds that I know, just continues to blow me away every time I speak to him. So, Chuck, without further ado, I will hand it over to you.
All right. Well, thank you, Matt. I really appreciate the kind words, and I want to thank everybody for making some time, whether you're live streaming on Facebook tonight or whether you're here with us in the Zoom session. I appreciate you making some time for this experience that we're going to share here tonight. I'm always in awe of the brothers in North Carolina. And for those of you who haven't had an opportunity to experience North Carolina Masonry and the wonderful programs that they have there, the program, the North Carolina Masonic Research Society, and so much else, really, there's just so much good stuff happening in North Carolina. If you're looking for models for what can be done to enhance Masonry wherever you are, at whatever level, whether it's the local lodge or whether it's the Grand Lodge or some kind of a regional thing, I really recommend that you follow through with the guys in North Carolina, get to know them and pick their brains. And if you can, go out and visit with them and see how they do things. It's exceptional. So tonight, the title of our get-together is Meditating with Blue Lodge Symbols. Now, I tonight decided that I was not going to come up with a scripted presentation. Sometimes when I do presentations, scripted presentations, and other times that I don't, I like to focus more on some kind of practical tips and providing an experience, and then having an opportunity for some questions and answers and comments from the audience. And I'm really looking forward to that part of our experience tonight. I want to start off by talking about meditation in some very general terms, because I don't want to assume that everybody here in the audience has got a background in meditation. And one of the things that I have learned over the years of teaching meditation and other contemplative methods is that sometimes even people who have kind of dipped their toe in those waters may have some misconceptions about what meditation is, how it works, what we can get from it, why we do it, that need to be cleared up, some misconceptions there that need to be cleared up. And so I'd like to start off by talking about some basic understandings and maybe even address some common misconceptions along the way. So I think one of the most important things to recognize first off is that our Blue Lodge ritual is full of references to contemplation. The word contemplative comes up. And if we examine the use of the word speculative or speculative, depending upon what jurisdiction you're in, the use of that word, if you go back to its origins and at the time that it became part of the Masonic vocabulary, they were talking about a process of focusing your consciousness on something particular and trying to unravel deeper possibilities of meaning. And that is a contemplative practice. So contemplative methods in general are not something that are foreign to the Masonic tradition at all. In fact, one of the things that is becoming more widely known is that if you go back and you look at the Shaw statutes of 1598 and 1599, William Shaw was I'm blanking on his title, but essentially he was the master of works for the Crown of Scotland. And his job was to oversee the buildings of castles and palaces and so on. And he was, for part of that time, he was even considered the Grand Warden of stonemasons, of fellows and masters craft of stonemasonry specifically. And in that position, that he did was draw up a set of statutes that specified what Freemasons should be doing, how they should be conducting themselves, what was expected of them, not only in terms of their conduct and their labor, but then also how they were to be educated and trained through the process of apprenticeship and craftsmanship. Well, one of the things that he put in the second edition of his statutes in 1599 was that all entered apprentices and fellowcrafts would take trial in the art of memory. And that's a real important thing to know, because he wasn't just talking about rote memorization. Shaw was in contact with other people in the court of Scotland, the Royal Court of Scotland, who were practicing the art of memory as it was done in the Hermetic tradition, as it was practiced by Bruno, for example. And their understanding of the art of memory was that memory, the practice of the art of memory, actually tapped into much more than just remembering things. That the art of memory they were practicing demanded the use of imagination, concentration, and they found that it opened the doors to creativity and to inspiration and to intuition and really deep, profound insights and spiritual experiences with the things that they were focusing on, that they were trying to learn with that art of memory. And I don't want to go into too much more detail about it. There are a lot of good books coming out on this now. It's being addressed more carefully through Masonic research. But the reason that I cite this is because it makes it clear that even before Freemasonry as we know it now existed, when Masonry was still an operative craft and we didn't see the kind of speculative development that began shortly after 1599, that at that time it was considered important for Masons to learn some things about how to use their mind in unusual ways, in extraordinary ways. And when it comes right down to it, when we talk about contemplative practice in his world, that's essentially what we're saying, is that we're trying to encourage Masons to use their minds in ways that they might not otherwise do. Our world is not really good at encouraging us to enter into states of mind very often, at least not to do that outside of certain structures where, you know, that's expected of us in the moment, maybe as part of an educational program or as part of our job. But in terms of our own self-development in becoming better, more mature human beings, we're not often encouraged to change our consciousness for those purposes. And if we go back to the ancient mystery traditions, we'll see that it's pretty clear that they understood in those ancient traditions that changing our consciousness, actually learning to use our minds in ways that are different from our run-of-the-mill mundane ways of thinking, that was a key to the experience of illumination or enlightenment or awakening, whatever term you want to call that experience of of transformation. There's another word that we can use for it, but that becoming more than we might otherwise be, becoming more of what we actually are, but just haven't fully realized yet. And so Masonry encourages us to do this through the use of the words like contemplative and speculative. And it even gives us really clear indications of some things that we're supposed to focus on. Of course, our entire ritual is a contemplative experience, a contemplative practice. We're continually having our attention drawn to the symbols and the teachings of Freemasonry through all of our senses in Masonic ritual. Masonic ritual is designed to occupy our minds so fully with the symbolism of Masonry that it just naturally creates this tiled space, so to speak, in which all of our thoughts and our feelings can focus on just what Masonry is trying to teach us and how we might be able to apply that in our lives. We stop thinking about all that other stuff. That is, assuming that we're, engaging the ritual and the activities of the lodge in the way that they tell us that they should be done. So there are many other ways that we can think about how Masonry encourages us to shift our consciousness. It talks about prayer, for example, quite a bit. It talks about the kind of deep, meaningful communication that should happen between brothers. I mean, we talk about counsel. We use the word counsel in our ritual to talk about that kind of dialogue that should happen between brothers. That too can be a rare experience in today's world where, brothers actually sit down and they're not just intellectualizing about things, but they're really deeply, profoundly tapping in the meaning of things in a way that can actually facilitate some change in their life, that it's not just some grand sounding idea with lots of complicated and obscured words that, that sounds like some sort of intellectual game that we're playing, but rather something that is truly meaningful and can help us impact the world and bring greater wisdom, greater strength, and greater beauty into our own personal experience and into the experiences of the lives that we touch. Now, why would Masonry want us to do this is quite clearly because our world needs us to do this. If we let the forces of the world itself determine how we develop and mature, then essentially what we all do is we all just become robots, acting in the way that the powers that profit from treating human beings like that want us to. So think about that for a second. Contemplative practice is actually one of the most radical things that you can do with your life. To become a fully actualized, a fully realized human being is to realize the authority within yourself. And this is not the kind of authority that, it's a tough guy, rebellious kind of standing against all other authority and nobody's going to tell me what to do. But it's a kind of authority that has a quiet, assured confidence to it, a sense of direction and meaning and purpose in life that nothing and no one can remove from you. It transcends even your own personality, your own personal wishes and desires and comforts. That those things become even less powerful over you and the kind of life that you lead. That's a pretty profound thing. And you can see why we would speak of that in terms of a transformation. So how does that happen? what are some of the things that we can experience in approaching that kind of transformation through meditation? Well, one of them is simply just understanding our symbols more clearly, really getting in a theoretical way, in an intellectual way, what it is that our ritual is saying about some things. And our ritual encourages us to practice logic, and we should be applying logic in our understanding of what ritual teaches us, and trying to make as much sense as possible of things, rather than just settling for that initial reaction that most of us have when we hear one of our lessons about one of our symbols. And logically about, okay, what's the relationship between these various symbols? Meditation can provide us an opportunity to think deeply like that. That kind of meditation is often called discursive meditation. Meditation can also help us find more personal relevance in that. So as we dig into really clarifying, what does that mean? Why is that important? Then we can start to connect it with our own lives and start to see the relevance of the principles that are represented by our symbols in our own lives. And beyond that, generate ideas, discover insights, intuitions, inspirations about how we might be able to use a principle to make adjustments in our life, us in a direction that would be challenging and rewarding, and help us fulfill more of our potential as a unique human being on the planet. And then beyond that, meditation upon our symbols can begin to help us understand human nature so deeply that we more fully appreciate the unity of humanity, how much it is that we really share with each other, how much we have in common with each other at these very, very deep levels, these levels that transcend culture, that transcend gender, that transcend every way that we differentiate ourselves from each other. And we talk about that too in Freemasonry, that kind of really deep realization of unity. It's one of my beliefs that when we talk about the mystic tie, that wasn't originally part of Masonic language. It was adopted because it was once written by a famous poet. It was a good turn of phrase, and we as a fraternity loved it, and so we adopted it. But think about that word, mystic tie, and how often the word mystic comes up in Masonic ritual and Masonic literature. And stop and think about the fact that the brilliant men who wrote Masonic ritual and who wrote much of the literature about the meaning of Masonic ritual must have known the meaning of the word mystic. Now, if you're like me, you were probably encouraged to think of mystic as just referencing what is mysterious. And you can certainly look at it that way, that we think of Freemasonry as mystic in that it is mysterious. It looks at mysteries. It keeps mysteries from the rest of the world in certain ways. But St. Aquinas talked about mystery and mystic, the word mystic, and made it clear for the Western world that mysticism, that being a mystic, that having a mystic experience, that all of that was about union with God, about realizing our oneness with the divine. And that is a possibility for the human soul in this life before we leave this body and shed the mortal coil. And so when I hear the word mystic tie in Freemasonry, one of the things that makes me think of is that essential spiritual reality that is the same root for all of us, the same divine spark in all of us. And so meditation offers us an opportunity to experience that as well. That is really where meditation and prayer, the distinctions between those start to become less clear. And there are certain types of prayer where that is especially true, where it's less about pouring out your thoughts and feelings as if you were talking to a therapist or someone who could solve your problems for you, and more about being quiet and being still to try to experience the presence of the divine right here and right now. So those are just some different ways that meditation might actually make a difference in a person's life, kind of in general terms. So I want to begin our work together now with a little meditation. And so what I would ask is that each of you, as much as you can, make sure that you're in a space where you won't be disturbed. If you've got earbuds or headphones that you can wear to listen to my voice as we go through this meditation, I want to encourage you to put those on. If you need to tell people around you to leave you alone for a little while and you haven't already done so, I want to give you an opportunity to do that. And I'll talk just a little bit longer to give you a chance to get yourself settled and in a set of circumstances where meditation will be comfortable and easy for you to do. One of the first things that we have to develop in the practice of meditation is the ability to concentrate. And this is an ability that we all have to some extent. Now, when I was a child in school, I probably would have been diagnosed with attention deficit disorder if such a thing if that name had existed back then. As a professional in the mental health field, I know that I meet the criteria, or I did at that time in my life meet the criteria for that diagnosis. But that didn't stop me from finding value in meditation and even developing abilities that I never would have thought were possible for me. So when we talk about concentration in meditation, if that's something that you have had trouble with, please don't let that stop you from giving meditation a try. One of the things that I want you to know is that it's a myth that good meditation has to be a constant stream of unbroken concentration. That, as I said earlier, is desirable. Good, solid, consistent, ongoing concentration for extended periods of time is desirable. But the catching yourself and becoming distracted, catching yourself in a loss of concentration, and gently redirecting yourself back into concentration is a wonderful meditative practice. It is a development of a kind of sense of self-awareness that many people don't practice, but could benefit from doing. And just that continually bringing yourself back, and doing that in a very gentle, accepting, non-judgmental way with much patience, you can already hear the virtues that you're developing in the process of redirecting yourself that way. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put an image on screen. I'm going to try to put an image on screen. All right. I think everybody sees that. Matt Parker, will you let me know? Is that visible, the point within the...
It is beautiful.
Thank you. All right. So in a moment, I'm going to begin a meditation. What I would like for you to do right now is to get yourself in a position that you can sit still in and not have to move around a lot, that you can focus on this image and just focus on that dot, that point within the circle. Try to hold your eyes on that. You may find that your eyes want to wander, to move around and look at some of the details in this image, and that's okay, but just bring your eyes back to the point within the circle. And remembering that catching yourself in that and redirecting yourself gently and patiently is itself the practice of some important skills that actually develop virtues. And now, as you look at that central point, I want you to take a really deep breath, filling your lungs as full as possible without straining, and hold it, hold it, hold it. And now let go of that breath and push out all the air that you can push out without straining, and then pause, pause, pause. Now inhale again, filling your lungs as much as possible without straining, and hold it, hold it, hold it, and then let it go. Exhaling all the air you can without straining, and then pause, pause, pause. One more time now. Inhale all the air you can without straining, and hold it, hold it, hold it, and let it go. Exhaling all the air you can without straining, and then pause, pause, pause. Now relax and breathe in a peaceful, natural rhythm. It isn't necessary to monitor your breath in any way, but just experience your body breathing peacefully and naturally. Keeping your eyes on that point within the circle. Being aware of your breath. Feel yourself beginning to relax. Your thoughts and feelings beginning to settle down as you become more focused. Your consciousness centering itself just as that point is centered within the circle. In a moment, you're going to hear the tone of a bell. And when you hear that, allow the vibrations to move through you, ringing into you, helping you center, helping you more of that point within yourself. Now allow your eyes to move off of the point and to wander wherever they would like to go within this symbol. Just notice the details. There's no need to analyze or try to think about them, but just experience being with the symbol, welcoming the image into your consciousness in all its details. And if you wish, try closing your eyes and you might see the after image of the symbol in your mind. You might be able to recreate the image in your mind. And you can go back and forth between the symbol and recreating it in your mind. Seeing all the details. Being able to hold that image in your mind, just as if you were looking at it with your eyes. You look at it for a while with your eyes, getting clarity on some of the details, and then close your eyes and reproduce it on the canvas of your imagination. Now, once again, just simply focus on the point at. You might notice that as you do so, there's a change that you experience in the energy that was required to focus on the details and look at all the details, and the energy of just looking at the point. For some people, looking at the point and staying on the point becomes easier after a while, and it's almost as if there's a resistance to moving away from it. This can be experienced in other kinds of focusing too. And it is a key to the development of concentration. Just simply accepting and being with the thing you wish to observe. All right, I'm going to stop the meditation now. And it's a good time to kind of move around a little bit if you haven't already. And take a moment to reflect on your experience. Think about what just happened, what that was like for you. And think about how that kind of attention to a symbol might change the way you experience that symbol, might change the way that symbol becomes a part of your life. A lot of times we are just skipping over our symbols at a surface level. even when we're memorizing all the things that we have to say about them, it's just the sounds of the words that we're hearing. It's just the pictures of the words, I mean, the images that we're seeing. It's not something that we've really taken into us at a very deep level. And we all have the opportunity to do that. What you just didn't take very long at all. It's something you can do anywhere, anytime. You don't have to do the little breathing exercise that we did. Maybe just one quick deep breath can be what's necessary to help you make that shift. Also, the more you practice this, the easier it is to just make that shift because you've decided that it's time to do so. And in the moment, wherever you are, you can open yourself to more deeply experience and welcome a symbol into your consciousness. This actually makes them more a part of us. I mean, we all already know what this experience is like just through the memorization process of how we might be going through our day and something is said or something happens. And all of a sudden, our mind just delivers an association to us about, oh, that reminds me of such and such in the ritual. That sort of thing can happen more often and can happen with greater significance when we allow ourselves to actually draw these symbols deeply into our consciousness. All right. So that's a good spot, I think, for us to now move on to another kind of meditation. A meditation that involves a more holistic experience, that isn't just about drawing a symbol into our minds, but is about listening to words and actually engaging with those words in a very tangible way, in a way that gives them a deeper kind of reality to us. So we use words a lot in Freemasonry. I mean, we've got all kinds of things that we memorize. Um, but one of the things I would suggest to you is that some of the most significant words in our ritual are actually the scriptural passages that we use at key points. And tonight we're going to be working in a meditative way with the first scriptural reference that many of us experience in Masonic context. It's Psalm 133. And so once again, I'd like for you to get yourself in a position for meditation. Try to get things set up for yourself so that you can follow along here fairly well. And I'm not going to put an image on the screen this time because I'm going to want you to close your eyes. And since you're home, that might be easier for you than it would otherwise. For some of you, it might actually be more challenging. But it's important to close your eyes because you're going to be using the faculty of your imagination to visualize some things. It's not a complex visualization, but one that it will help to close your eyes. So go ahead and do that. Get yourself comfortable, get in a good position to sit still for a little while, and we'll get started. Now just take a few deep breaths on your own. And as you release each breath, allow your body to relax further. And then let your body breathe in its own peaceful, natural rhythm. If you notice any tension anywhere in your body, your legs, your tummy, your back, chest, in your shoulders or your arms, any tension that you don't need to keep you sitting in a healthy posture. Just let it go. Feel the gravity of the earth pulling you into a deeper state of calm, peaceful relaxation. With each breath, you feel yourself letting go of more of the unnecessary tension that you may have in your body. You can go into an even deeper state of calm, peaceful relaxation by silently marking the breath with the word in as you inhale and out as you exhale. Breathing in, you mentally say in. Breathing out, you mentally say out. And just continue observing the breath flowing in and out in its own peaceful, natural rhythm as you continue silently repeating in, out. Feel each breath taking you into a deeper state of calm, peaceful relaxation. Now focus your attention on your heart and allow the appropriate feelings of emotion to grow there as you meditate upon these words. Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. Feel that good and pleasant sense of togetherness in your heart and imagine it as a ball of glowing white light in and around your heart. Now take a deep breath as you imagine another ball of light appearing at the top of your head. Try to feel its energy radiating onto your scalp in some way, such as warmth or electricity or a pressure change. Now, with this ball of light above your head, try to actually feel on your body what these words describe. It is like the precious ointment upon the head that ran down upon the beard, even Aaron's, that went down to the skirts of his garments. As the dew of Hermon, and as the dew that descended upon the mountains of Zion, for there the Lord commanded the blessing, even life forevermore. Once again, focus your attention on the ball of energy in and around your heart. And allow the appropriate feelings to grow there as you meditate again upon these words. Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. Feel that good and pleasant sense of togetherness in your heart, and imagine it radiating from the ball of glowing white light in and around your heart. Now take a deep breath as you move your attention to the ball of energy at the top of your head. Try to feel its energy radiating onto your scalp. And once again, try to actually feel on your body what these words describe. It is like the precious ointment upon the head that ran down upon the beard, even Aaron's beard that went down to the skirts of his garments. As the dew of Hermon, and as the dew that descended upon the mountains of Zion, for there the Lord commanded the blessing, even life forevermore. A third time now, focus your attention back on the ball of energy in and around your heart, and allow the appropriate feelings to grow there as you meditate upon these words. Behold, how good and how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. Feel that good and pleasant sense of togetherness. Imagine it radiating out from the ball of white light in and around your heart. Now take a deep breath as you return your attention to the ball of energy at the top of your head. Try to feel its energy radiating there on your scalp. And feel on your body what these words describe. It is like the precious ointment upon the head that ran down upon the beard, even Aaron's beard that went down to the skirts of his garments. As the dew of Hermon, and as the dew that descended upon the mountains of Zion, for there the Lord commanded the blessing, even life forevermore. Now just take a moment to continue experiencing those feelings and energy. And as you experience that energy and reflect its meaning for you, ask yourself how you might contribute to more of that happening in your life and in the lives of your brethren. Ask yourself about the significance of this verse connecting the ideas of togetherness and unity among brethren with the blessing of life forevermore. Why would those two things be so closely connected? Now I'd like you to take another deep breath. Just fill your lungs as full as you can and then blow it out. Let's do that a couple of more times. Let go of the imagery. Bring yourself back to a more ordinary state of consciousness. Open your eyes. Move around a little bit. And now you have just experienced another way to use meditation and contemplation of Masonic symbols in a way that can have some very profound effects. I won't go into much detail there, but one of the things that is actually intentionally working with the energy, the subtle energies of your body, of your mind, and of your emotions. All of those are energies that you have the potential to have direct control of, to be able to manage more significantly than you might otherwise do in your life. And those energies can be used for the benefit of others as well as yourself. So that's it for the initial comments and experiences that I wanted to provide you with this evening. And so, Matt, I want to turn things over to you as our moderator to begin any kind of sharing that we might have with our audience.
Chuck, thank you so much for that. I think I can speak for many of us here that going through the isolation and all of the things going on around us and the news, we're all in a more stressful, tense state. And the last couple of days for me have been especially hard with work and some other things. But I'll tell you something, that all just melted away. I haven't felt this good in weeks.
I'm so glad to hear that, brother.
Yeah, brothers, I'm going to unmute everyone. If you have any background noise going on, please mute yourself. But we'll open up the floor for any questions for Chuck.
While I'm waiting on things, if you're really, while we're waiting on questions, let me make a couple of comments.
$291, and she paid cash for another special super quiet new sewing machine.
Oh, I'm hearing somebody.
Yeah, that's Brother Michael.
Okay. Let me make just two quick comments. If you're more interested in learning and participating in Masonic meditation, let me refer you to two sources. One is the Academy of Reflection for Scottish Rite Masons, and the other is the Masonic Legacy Society, which offers a free set of materials online that you can use to practice contemplative methods in Masonry. So that's the Masonic Legacy Society, and you can just search that on Google and it'll pull it right up. And the other one is the Academy of Reflection. All right, so let's get to questions, comments from the audience.
Well, Chuck, a lot of stuff you said kind of reminded me of Carl Jung. And then, of course, the Kabbalah with the chest going on top of the white light with the head, like
yes,
eye opening, represented by our triangle with the G, of, omniscience. That was pretty interesting, I do have to say.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it, Michael. And you're right on. I mean, a lot of traditions and authorities talk about this, visualizing this ball of energy above our heads and in other places in our body. There are some pretty significant effects that can come from that kind of work. And the fact that you can actually feel the presence of these things tells us some significant stuff about consciousness, that we can start to get a greater appreciation of mind over matter.
But see, you said mind over matter. That reminds me again of the feats the Buddhist monk can do, like drying wet shirts in -degree temperature, not succumbing to pneumonia and all that stuff. So basically, our physical form that's what it is, physical form. We tap into what I call the universal consciousness. You must likely be getting hurt or injured, but it takes a lot of practice. I mean, it's a pretty good demonstration, but I'm pretty sure that some of the people didn't get quite the effect. I do meditate myself a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm also a student of psychology, and Carl Jung is, and reading right now some Masonic books about the Kabbalah, which again, kind of like the chakra points, lines itself up. So,
Yes. Yeah, very much so. And I just want to follow up on that point, and that is that experiences like this, sometimes the initial experience can be really significant, and sometimes it can be hard to really connect with. But in either case, with time and practice, we become better at these things, and the effects that they can have on us become more cumulative. All right. Is there someone else?
I have a question.
Sure. It's Patty.
Yes.
Hi, Patty.
Hi. So I've been having this come life in me for a while, and sometimes it gets so intense around the heart, I just probably think I might have a heart attack.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll go up into my head. The other day I was outside barefoot, and I was able to, it gets so overwhelming and you don't know where to direct it.
Mm-hmm.
I put my feet on the ground and just pushed it back down, into the ground, because sometimes it comes up through the ground to me. So
Yeah.
but tonight it was so strong, you could have seen my heart racing under my pounding. I could feel the energy above my head.
I'm glad that it was a good, clear experience for you, but I also know what you mean sometimes about it can sometimes become disturbing. Mm-hmm. And you're right about wasting that energy being important. And so one of the things that you're already doing that a lot of people find value in is getting your shoes and socks off and getting your feet in contact with the earth. That's an actual physical act of grounding oneself, right? Stomping your feet can be a helpful way to release some of that energy. Clapping with your hands can be a helpful way to do that. And just a really sharp exhalation, just really sharply blowing out as much air as you can also help release some of that energy. And there are other techniques that can be helpful to that. But that's a good testimony to just how powerful this can be with time.
You can spin it in your head and create. I'm an Eastern Star, but I don't know if that's where it comes from. But I sometimes will project it back to my star at my lodge where I was initiated, and just heal the Masons that I know, run it through the mystic tie. I don't know how else to.
Yeah.
I don't sometimes know what to do.
Yeah, but one of the things that I would point out about this for you is that there's clearly meaning in that for you. That if nothing else, that says something to you about the significance and the depth of meaning of what's going on in a lodge room for you, and how you personally connect with it, and what you want to give to it, how important all of that is to you. And if nothing else, then the symbolism of the imagery and the power of your own emotions make that a richer experience for you. And that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Brother Brother Chuck, thank you very much. That really calmed my mind down. I would say of the last 3 weeks that I've been meditating, that seemed to be, maybe because it was guided, it seemed to just really calm the waters in my head more than
Mm,
doing it myself. Um, you'd mentioned before about um, being, if you were to diagnose yourself as a child, ADD. Myself, that was something I struggled with,
mm,
even into my adult life into college. And it wasn't until about 10 years ago when I started meditating, and I'm more focused. It seems like my thoughts, the way I speak, are more intentional than they were.
yes.
Uh, so you bringing that up, I mean, I was, just sitting here thinking about, how much my life has changed
Hmm.
just by meditating over the years. And by no means, I've been doing it 10 years. By no means do I feel like I'm at the place where I want to be. But uh, would you mind sharing a little bit about, your background and meditation, and when you started doing these presentations or guided meditations?
Sure, David. I'll be happy to talk about that. So, my formal training in meditative practices began in the late '80s, around 1986, 1987, something like that. I had a philosophy professor that taught a seminar, an 8-week seminar in meditation, and so that's when I started learning things. And and after I worked with him, I also learned some things from others. But at the same time I was starting with him, I was also beginning to work in the mental health field. And I was working as a caseworker at an addiction rehab facility. And one of the counselors there taught me a process of progressive relaxation and silent sitting, not unlike what we did during that last meditation to kind of get settled and centered. And and so then I started using the clients on my caseload to help them cope with a lot of the feelings that they were having as they were, you know, dealing with temptations to relapse and dealing with the just actually finally confronting a lot of the things and difficulties in their life that they had been using alcohol and other drugs to cover up. And so that's when I really started teaching meditative practice, and it just became part of my professional practice and became part of my personal life. So, yeah, that's where it all started for me, David.
Um, Brother Chuck, I have a question.
Yes.
Um, a lot of times when we hear about meditation, it's done as an individual thing.
Mm-hmm.
But on this particular group meeting, one of the things that struck me this evening was that in our regular lodge, I can only think of one moment where there is silence, like true silence and contemplation outside of the degree work, and that's when we're having a moment of silence for a departed brother.
Yeah.
And obviously that's a real time of sorrow, but I was wondering if you might talk a little bit about group meditation in a lodge setting, and when that might be appropriate, in cases like that.
Sure. So just one thing that I will say is I know that there are lodges all over the country now in the United States of America where you will find worshipful master having the members actually taking a moment of silence like that. Some do it at a certain point within the traditional opening of the ritual. At that time, for example, when the chaplain would be offering a traditional prayer, they may begin the chaplain's prayer with a period of silence, and then the chaplain ends it ends that period of prayer, or that period of silent prayer, with one of the traditional spoken prayers. In some lodges, they do it immediately after all of the official opening is done. Then they take that moment of silence, and that's recognized as something outside then the closing ritual, because in some jurisdictions, I mean the opening ritual, because in some jurisdictions they would see they might be real persnickety about seeing anything different done in the process of opening, as being anathema. That just can't happen. But then once the opening is done, what happens in the lodge is at the master's discretion. And so a lot of them do their moment of silence at that point. But in some lodges in Scotland, that's just part. That's actually a traditional part of their process of beginning the business of the lodge, is to take a moment of silent meditation. So those are all possibilities. On the greater context of group meditation, I've got a book. My second book is at the publisher right now, and I'm looking for it to come out sometime this year. And it's called The Contemplative Lodge: A Masons Doing Inner Work Together. And it really goes into not only the theoretical and technical parts of meditation in groups, but also deals with logistical concerns, political concerns, leadership concerns, all of the kinds of questions that arise anytime a group of Masons starts asking that question: hey, what if we try to do this together? Many lodges they'll do called meetings, and they'll open a lodge just for the purpose of Masonic education. Well, isn't what we just did a kind of education?
That's what I'm here for.
Okay.
Yep. Chuck, worshipful brother Joe Martinez, or brother Joe Martinez, has had his hand raised. So,
all right, let's hear from Joe.
Yeah.
Hello, Chuck. First, I want to say thank you so much for tonight. It's always a blessing to join one of your guided meditations, and I know some of the other brothers were asking, so I figured I might as well plug you. You actually started recording some of your guided meditations and put them on YouTube. So if you want to tell some of the folks here where they can find it, I'm sure they would love it, because ever since you started recording them, I find my meditations are going much more smoothly because I'm not having to worry about the structure around it,
Okay.
So
So what Joe is talking about is my YouTube channel, and that's Contemplative Builder. You can just go into YouTube, search for Contemplative Builder, and it'll come right up. Last I checked, I don't have enough subscribers yet to call it, to have that in the URL, so that it's Contemplative Builder instead of a string of letters and numbers.
we'll fix that, Chuck.
Maybe after tonight that'll change. But yeah, I've got, I think now 5 guided meditations in that collection. I've also got some contemplative poetry that I've written over the years there. And I'm also going to be uploading recordings of presentations that I've done. Maybe like this one tonight, for example, might be possible. So all of that is available there at contemplativebuilder.com. And welcome anybody to make use of that. If there's something there that you want to incorporate into a presentation that you're doing for a lodge, feel free to do so. I'm not, I'm not in the business of selling any of that stuff. It's there for free use. I got a question here from, looks like Kevin Schneider, who wanted to know if I was trained in NLP, that's neuro-linguistic programming. No, I was not, although I've worked with professionals over the years who were, and we compared notes and traded techniques and ideas with each other, but I'm not formally in NLP.
Chuck, brother David Trexler also has his hand raised and has a question for you.
All right, David.
David, I'll unmute you.
Right. First off, I was very unfamiliar with well, I was familiar with it, but not actual practicing meditation until I joined my home lodge. And ironically, about 2 months ago, Sean Bradshaw, that's in here tonight with us, actually posted the point within the circle, and it was one of those Masonic symbols that spoke to me. I'm not sure what it was, whether it was the parallel lines or what it was, but thanks to the explanation Sean gave with it, I gave him, at that point, I was at a lot of my personal, what was going on in my personal life was kind of just had me down.
Mhm.
And upon seeing the symbol, I did what I do every night before I went to bed, light an incense, and try the meditation thing, just me by myself in a quiet room. After about 45 minutes of doing the deep breathing like we did, went to bed, woke up the next day, and it felt like a totally different person.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing how quickly you can see results from doing some of these things. Really positive benefits to your life. In a lot of ways, it's like exercise or the things that you do for hygiene, like taking a shower or whatever that you do to try to take care of yourself and be healthier. You can see immediate results from very simple steps in those things. And the same thing can happen in terms of meditation and other kinds of contemplative practice. So thanks for that testimony there, David.
Are there any brothers on here that actually practice meditation in their lodges? I know David does. He was just talking about that, and Curry. Any of the Sophia 767 brothers do, but
Yeah.
is there anyone else who does that routinely in your lodge?
Yeah,
Yeah, we do the Matt.
we do.
Good. Chuck, one thing I wanted to bring up that's going through my mind is our ritual in the Blue Lodge, the opening and closing, or whatever else there may be, the scriptures, uh, the things we really hold so dear, and we go through those things repetitively, meeting after meeting, and I think there's a part of that also helps to put us into that contemplative state if we are really focusing on the words and the meaning of the words. And I think it does something internally, mentally, where it brings us into that moment.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. When we talk about the lodge, we talk about a sacred space in our ritual. We talk about a place that is supposed to be set apart from the rest of the world. So set apart that we actually then at that point speak of the rest of the world as being profane, right? And we don't mean profane as in unacceptable or nasty or hideous or offensive. We just mean it's outside the temple, that we're supposed to be in a temple, in a sacred place. And that means a shift in consciousness so that we're not using our minds. We're not thinking and feeling in the same ways that we were outside. That means actually making an effort to shift. That's not just going to happen automatically for most of us. That has to be something that's intentional. And we're experiencing things that can help us make that intentional shift.
Okay, and I think I saw Brother Kevin's hand raised. Kevin, did you have a question?
Negative. You asked who did meditation in their lodge. I was just going to toss out, we don't actually do meditation as it was done here tonight, but at the end of our Masonic education discussions for the evening, we will have a period where we will have several minutes light music in the background playing, and we will focus on some aspect of the education topic presented that evening that is significant to each of us for a few minutes before we close. So in a sense, meditation, a chance to contemplate different than what we went through tonight, but I think serving the same purpose. So,
Matthew, Chuck, I have a question, just a clarification.
All right.
Chuck, I'm not Scott, by the way. I'm his buddy, Dave. But anyway, I
Hi,
got
Dave.
his name somehow. At any rate, I have been practicing various forms of Trappist, Cistercian, Benedictine spirituality since the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And at Thomas Merton's monastery in various places.
Oh, nice.
And you're confusing me on language somewhat, and I'm sure it's purely a matter of how you use the terms, which are different than that tradition. I usually think of meditation as being something that includes symbols,
Yeah.
while contemplation, the title of your book, is when you're not using symbols,
Yeah.
but is image-free. Is that your preferred language for this? I mean, it's the bit about, for example, contemplation, let's be. It doesn't concentrate on anything.
Right.
Versus meditation, which you might meditate upon the cross, or you might meditate upon a Buddha, or meditate upon a psalm, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But contemplation is mindless. Is that where you're at too?
Well, I appreciate your distinctions, and in fact, I'm familiar with that. And I want to make that clarification that in the Christian monastic tradition, those uses of those terms, you're absolutely correct. That's the contemplation is a stillness, openness, receptiveness to just being present with the divine in whatever way the divine is present. And the highest forms of contemplation are actually in that tradition not something we do. They're something that is gifted. And that's, however, not the way I'm using the term contemplation in my book and in my work in Masonry. I'm using the more common use of the term contemplation in the secular world, and particularly in higher education now, where contemplative studies is a thing. Contemplation is seen as an umbrella term for lots of different ways of working with the mind.
Well, it wouldn't be the first time that academia was only 4,000 or 5,000 years out of date. I graduated from that bunch and gave up on it finally in my 50s.
Hey, Scott, I have something that I've pondered. I do a lot of thinking. I'm by myself. I've got 2 kids that are on their own now. I had 6, but they're all grown and gone. So contemplation with compassion, finding love in even the person that's upset with you, seeing the metamorphosis that they just haven't gotten there yet to release the karmic release. I believe that when you escape the ripples of karma by correcting your actions and keeping every thought and every action within due bounds, that you basically can become one with that pure energy. And so when you contemplate with compassion, it's love. And that's what it's all about. I can tell you that I can walk through a mall and feel that energy spinning and know who is a Mason and who isn't. Like the lights could be dark and I still would know. I can even feel it in grandchildren that aren't Masons. I'll ask them, is your grandpa or father a Mason? Because I get this little spin. So it's something already in your bloodline that you have this compassion and this love that extends through time, from the beginning of where we all came from. So I think when you contemplate, try to fall in love with the idea and immerse yourself, and then it kind of releases you of sometimes judgment, which can bring on karmic. If you're sitting there judging and judging and judging, you got to let all that go and love them no matter what path they're on, and wish them well and send them good healing energy, because we're all connected. I think I see it like an umbilical cord. Literally, our silver cords are tied together. And I think that I can sense it when someone's hurting, or it just, maybe it's being a mother of so much, and I've had, a lot on my plate. Now I'm empty nested almost. And so I think you tend to get really deep in thought. And so I don't know, it's the beautiful part of Masonry, in my opinion. I think it's like the symbols become 3D in your mind's eye. And even if you read the Bible or the Kolbrin or the Quran or whatever you are, the pages pop off at you, the words, they're in you, like, because you can see it finally. It's like this prism. It's like there's a symbol that I can maybe describe. I don't have people to talk to about this. Poor Adam Goldman gets to hear it all from me sometimes, or Jamie Lamb or Joe Martinez. But the symbol of the square, the triangle, and the circle, when you're sitting in, say, a meditative state, and I'm no expert, I am as clumsy, and I don't pretend to even know everything. I'm just trying to tell you where I am seeing things change in me. The triangle comes up, and then all of a sudden everything is 3D and you're in this other space. So it's kind of like the mind's eye, I guess. I don't know how to describe it. But it's a sacred place. It's like a holy temple where you get all that energy going.
Well, definitely the thing that I most appreciate about what you said is the importance of love and compassion. That I find is true about us who are kind of the esoteric orientation about all of this stuff is that many of us are still kind of stuck in our heads with all of this stuff. And to be able to connect our inner work, our meditations, our deep thoughts, our studies with things like compassion, empathy, and actually being present with other human beings, fully present with them. These are all things that Masonry is teaching us to do. There's this traditional closing charge that is optional in most jurisdictions, is still there. Says that all people have a claim on our kind offices as Masons, and that we are to do good to all, not just our brothers. And of course, we all know that charity, caritas, agape, which is that unlimited, boundless love, is the highest virtue on the Entered Apprentice Mason's ladder, and it's the thing that we're all taught we should aspire to above all else in our Blue Lodge ritual. And so that can be quite challenging for those of us who have been raised to be competitive, to be unemotional, to try to deny so much of what it is that makes us truly human. And Masonry offers us an opportunity, not only a sacred space, but a safe space in which we can more fully flower into what it means to be a fully alive human being. So thanks, Patty.
Okay, and Tim Dahlman, Tim, you've got your hand raised. I'll unmute you.
Hi, Chuck.
Hey, Tim.
Hey, everyone. Chuck, thanks for another great experience.
My pleasure.
I listened to kind of what my heart was telling me tonight as we went through this meditation. I kind of put some pieces together. And what I'm experiencing right now, kind of a culmination of maybe several months consciously, maybe several years subconsciously, is I'm feeling like an explorer now. Kind of like an explorer in two ways: personal, as I learn more about meditation and contemplation and some of the internal practices, but also within Masonry as a whole. I feel like we, as a kind of this collective egregore group that's been created since this pandemic, it's like we're exploring new. It's like we've come over the top of a mountain and we see a valley with a river running through it, and I can kind of metaphorically, you know, envision a community being formed in the future, you know, that is sustainable for a long period in Masonry. And you know, that is I guess, to use the phrase you did earlier, the new normal. But I can see in my mind, I can envision some of these arts and sciences, you know, being incorporated more and more into formal lodge routines, so that more and more Masons can grow and benefit, and the communities, you know, as well as an outward projection of these things that we can tap into. And I probably don't have a good way to articulate that, and so at this point I'll begin, you know, I'll go back into silence. But that's just sort of something I was feeling that I felt was important to express for some reason.
I'm really glad you shared that, Tim. And it actually reminds me of something. So I don't know that everybody knows this, but my job is I work on a college campus. Well, I'm working from home now, but I do mental health consulting at Texas Christian University. And one of the things that we're discovering about our students right now who are sheltering in place and getting their education online is that they're probably for the first time in their lives sick to death of electronic forms of communication. They can't stand to look at their phones anymore. They can't stand to be on the screen anymore. They need time to interact with each other, and they're more aware of that now than they have ever been in their lives about how important it is to have real human contact. And I think there are a lot of other people, not students, that are going to be recognizing that and how important that is, not only to them as individuals, but to the communities that they live in, like you were saying, Tim. And it may be that Masonry is going to be just what a lot of people turn to once they get the opportunity to go in search of the light they've been lacking, and now realize that they've been lacking.
Okay, and Michael Brightonfield, you have your hand up. Did you have a question, Michael, or a comment?
I just want to comment, like the statement he said with the video learning stuff. I'm an exceptional children's teacher at the high school, and I keep finding out that the students in the beginning, I had a very high attendance rate on that stuff. But as I come to find out, you cannot deny that we are social creatures. Even if we have video chats like we do tonight, it's still not as being present with the person. I've even noticed that even with the 6 foot distancing, because I still go out trying to make a little bit of and stuff, because I don't know if I get paid, because they always want this paperwork to justify why I'm still teaching. But the problem I've seen is it's possibly not the people distance that matters, the energy from the other person. Remember how I mentioned Carl Jung, the Kabbalah, and the auras? Some people need, to see this. It's like the lady, I forgot her name, who had that heart problem. That's probably because, like you said, she is not grounded, but it could also be in a field that has a lot of negative energy. And people that's why people gather. I do have to say I'm in Phoenix Russell favor number 1. Number 8. And what keeps us together is there is so much positive energy when we get together that you really feel almost rejuvenated after in meeting. Yes, we have our grievances. Yes, we have our little political games or whatever, but the cohesion. And I've noticed that we are, at least I've been told, we are one of the most active lodges there are. We still need the social contact. So video chat is only good for so long until people meet. Why? Because we want to feel that energy.
Yeah.
And what I started doing, and I finish after that, is I actually taught, like, I'm still not an expert, but there's something called breathing yoga or breathing Buddhism, where they actually teach you how to breathe. Just the simple effect of being aware of taking a breath in and exhale. The breath in makes so much difference. At first, I was laughed at my students was a joke, but now I get some emails saying, "Man, I wish you could be there and hold that little breathing exercise. It only takes 5 to 10 minutes." But that once again tells me it creates positive energy, and that's what we need. So I don't think that being separated, pandemic is going to last long while. People need to, I would say, feed off each other's energy.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I often talk about human beings in the term of like being tuning forks. And we tend to resonate with whatever energy is around us. And that's one of the great effects of being in lodge, is that energy is beneficial, it's healing, it's loving, it's gentle. When it's properly set up and expressed, you get all of those beautiful things that we saw and experienced and heard in Psalm 133. That's the energy that should permeate lodge, is what we experienced when we meditated on Psalm 133. Thank you for that, Michael.
Okay, and Clint, Brother Clint has his hand up. So, Clint, I've unmuted you. I think I have. Yeah, there you go.
Did that work?
I think.
Hey, brothers. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, sorry, my microphone's kind of spotty. Now that the Grandmaster has left the room, I would like to say that we have a traditional observance lodge that's under dispensation in North Carolina, and we've actually been experimenting with doing group meditation remotely. Now, this isn't like Golden Dawn astral projection kind of stuff. This is just everybody sets a time, everybody's there, everybody meditates, and we focus all on one thing. Even though we're not together, we do it as a group. Mm-hmm. And that's been very beneficial for the 5 of us that do that regularly. Chuck, if you have anything to say on that, I would love to hear your input on our practices. Thank you.
I think that's wonderful. I think there are 2 thoughts I thought about 2 things that come up for me here. And one is that there's probably some benefit to having something consistent about that experience, a consistent kind of meditative practice that you do, but then also some benefit to having something a little different each time, or every now and then something a little different. But benefit that comes with consistency of practice, of doing some of the same practices over and over again, it's like anything that you want to become really good at and that you want to have the deepest possible experience of and effects from, you do repeatedly. So if you're learning to play a musical instrument, right, you practice those chords. If you're wanting to learn to dance, you practice those steps and you do them over and you do them over and you do them over. And so that helps each individual not only develop that flow of energy within themselves, and that shifting of consciousness becomes more of a natural kind of thing for them, but then as a group too, those things can begin to happen at a group level, so that the spirit of the group itself, without getting into different metaphysical and esoteric terms, that just the spirit and the mind of the group itself begins to be transformed in ways that just simply doing something different each time would not accomplish. So that's what came to me in the moment.
Chuck, a few of the brothers have hit on this. Worshipful Brother Tim Dahlman actually used the word, and what you were just describing is egregore.
Yeah.
And for those that are not familiar with that term, I'm not sure of the origin of that word. I believe it's French, but and Chuck, you could probably describe it better than I could, but it's more like a group energy. And I don't think you necessarily have to be in the same physical location to be able to generate that.
No, that's true. You don't. It's more powerful when you are. But yeah, that's the term. And there are lots of different ideas about what an egregore actually is, how it actually works, and so on. But a simple kind of basic understanding about an egregore is that it is a kind of, the simplest way of understanding it, and I'd like things there, is that it is a kind of group spirit, an attitude that tends to develop, that carries itself. You walk into a space where, you know what it's like. You walk into a lodge room where the brothers have been doing really good, sincere, loving work, and just walking into the lodge room, you feel something special in the place. Particularly if you're a member of that group. The moment of walking into the lodge room creates a transition in you. And that's an experience of the kind of thing that we're talking about here.
Hey, Chuck?
Yes.
I would even add a little bit more to that. It's actually, at least in my experience, or the way I learned it, was it's more palpable than just a feeling or something. It's actually something that can linger and establishes itself on its own, is almost independent from those that created it. In fact, to get rid of that, it takes a deliberate act.
Yes, that's right.
Spell that.
That's right. Yeah, that's going into a more complex direction here that I want to, because that would be a show all in itself. Yeah, but that's true. I mean, in esoteric work, the egregore is actually considered to be a living being in itself. That it's a living being that has been given birth to by the souls that came together. And you know what happens when human beings come together? We give birth to things. And so that's an example.
I'm signing off. Good night, guys. Thank you so much for everything. Ciao, guys.
Night, Curry.
Night, Curry.
Brothers, do we have any other questions for Chuck? Questions, comments, threats?
Get your book out pretty soon, man.
I'm trying. It's in the publisher's hands, so it's out of my control at this point.
I just want you to know you have grounded me a lot, because I've been in my house 4 weeks now. I haven't left. And I have had so many questions, and there's, all I can do is receive from these videos, but that meditation really helped me kind of take it to sizzling instead of just swirling and just, out of control energy. Sometimes it feels like I could probably just kill over. It gets so strong.
Oh my gosh.
Tonight I was able to, I felt it, run down my back and over, as you were saying, imagine it pouring. I felt it literally running through, cycling through different points
Good.
And it was really more even. It wasn't so centralized at heart or my head. So it was really
good.
I mean, a big relief.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that, Patty.
Never tried to control it or sizzle it like that. It was really
wonderful.
Okay. How about a quick plug for tomorrow, Brother Chuck? Want to talk about
okay. So tomorrow night at 8:30, is that right, Randy?
Yes.
The Refracted Light is going to be hosting me to do a presentation on a Platonic view of wisdom, strength, and beauty. And I'll be talking more about wisdom, strength from a Masonic perspective, but how that can be illuminated, understanding what wisdom, strength, and beauty mean within the framework of Plato's ideas, how he conceptualized what he referred to as the form of the good, which is the ultimate reality, and how wisdom, strength, and beauty relate to that. There we go. That's it. Good old Plato.
Awesome.
Right.
Thank you.
Good job, Chuck. We really do appreciate you joining us tonight. If it's any indication as to the impact of your presentation, we've been going about an hour and 45 minutes, and that's our longest presentation so far. So you really have engaged the group. And I'll just say that I hope this is something that the brothers can take back to their individual lodges. Share this experience. Whether you go through a guided meditation, just a moment of contemplation in silence, however you go about doing that in your lodge, but it's key to center yourself and divest yourself of all the vices and superfluities of life. Leave all those things outside of the door, and make that lodge room a sacred space. And I've learned that from Chuck. And something that I took back to my lodge and we do on a regular basis. So, Chuck, again, thank you so much. That was a mind-blowing presentation. I really appreciate that. And hopefully we'll get to hang out together sometime soon in person.
I hope for that too.
Good. I got a scotch and cigar waiting for you.
All right. There's something to meditate on.
All right. Well, brothers, we're going to call it an evening there. We're going to let Chuck go about the rest of his evening. But I appreciate everyone joining us, and we will do it again next Tuesday when our guest speaker will be Worshipful Brother R.J. Johnson. So I think we're all looking forward to seeing R.J.'s presentation as well. So we will see you then.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.